If you're enjoying Pigoted Podcast, then why not sign up to our Patreon? You can find it at patreon.com/pigoted, and on there you get loads of extra benefits, such as early access to episodes. You get access to Pigoted Extra, which is extra content from our guests, usually about 45 minutes to an hour long of extra content every single week. You get merchandise, you get to ask questions, you get to be part of our Discord community. We have a Discord server where people chat and ask questions and discuss topics that have been brought up on the podcast. You get all that through Patreon, and it starts from just £3 a month. Plus, you'll be supporting the podcast. You'll be helping the podcast to grow, helping us to fund bigger and better guests and to pay for all the editing and that kind of thing. So please, if you are enjoying Pigoted, then think about signing up and becoming a Patreon from just £3 a month over at patreon.com/pigoted. Welcome to Pigoted, the podcast that brings comedians and experts together. Joining us today is Michael Marshall, a.k.a. Marsh. Hello.
Hello. It's lovely to be here.
And joining us as a comedian is Simon Wozniak.
Right.
Cool. Marsh, what is it that you do? Tell us a little bit about your background and your credentials as an expert.
Yeah, so I am, I think, the country's only full-time professional skeptical investigator. That is what I do for a living. I'm the editor of The Skeptic magazine. I work for a charity called Good Thinking Society. And so part of my job is to look into weird beliefs and why people believe them. So conspiracy theory, alternative medicine, fake cancer cures, psychics, all this kind of stuff. And so part of that job means that I have to go undercover and actually see these things in person to see what people are actually saying and how they're persuading people. And then I kind of work with regulators, I work with the media, I work with the police occasionally to try to stop people selling things that don't work to people who don't realize they don't work. And then another part of my job when there isn't a pandemic is I travel around the country talking about the work that I do to audiences and to sort of public meetings, which means a big part of my day job is I've got to go to a room full of strangers and try to convince them to doubt stuff. Is essentially what I do for a living.
Okay.
And I always tell people as I give a talk that that's what part of my day job, and there's always someone in the audience that looks at me as if to say, that's not really a job, is it?
And then you go, aha!
That's how good I am at making you doubt stuff.
Yeah,
You even doubt the validity of my chosen career.
Mate, this is, that's great.
What made you get into this? I'll butt in first.
Well,
my contribution will be done now.
Sort of by accident. So I was just kind of working for, just in an office, and I was always interested in why some people believe in things that are outside of the mainstream that don't seem to be supported by evidence. So stuff like psychics always interested me. And a lot of my friends were always like, well, yeah, it's probably bollocks, but why do you care? Like, you're not going to go and see them. Why do you care? And it's like, well, because like there are people who actually live their life according to what psychics tell them, and they put their heart out there to say, like, I've lost someone, please tell me all about them. And if this person isn't really talking to the dead, then what they're doing is pretty good.
Well, let me throw something in there, right? So I also think that psychics are bollocks, but I've wrestled for a long time with the thought of how much does it matter really? So the thing is when psychics like do a reading and stuff, they never go, okay, listen, what you need to do is you need to leave your family, quit your job, and move to Guatemala. Like they never say that. They always go like, oh, you're going to get an opportunity soon and you should definitely take it. And, like when they pretend to talk to the dead and stuff like that, which they cannot do. But all they're doing is they're going, oh, your mum says that she's happy where she is. She loves you. Now, she's not. They're not talking to the dead. I know they're not talking to the dead. But if that person goes away and goes, oh, well, my mum's happy in fucking heaven or whatever. Like, because the psychic never goes, oh, I'm speaking to your mum now, and she's getting raped by Satan. Do you know what I mean? Like she's in hell. They always say she's happy.
I've been to one where they've said that.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Shut up.
No, of course not.
Oh, right.
Well,
okay.
no, I've been to psychics where they haven't just said, oh, your mum's, your son's in a lovely place right now. They've done some pretty grim stuff. So because I go undercover and I go along to psychic events and see them.
What's the grimmest thing that you've ever heard a psychic say?
So there's a couple of examples, right? I saw a guy called Joe Power, who's actually from not too
Joe
far from
Power.
here. Joe Power.
That was his name.
That was him. He was actually the reason that I gone into skepticism, or one of the ways that I got into skepticism.
Joe Power.
Joe Power. It's not his real name, obviously.
No, even so,
That's
though.
his stage name.
If you're but your stage name has to be like fucking Madame Delacroix or something like that.
He's Joe Power.
Joe Power sounds like a motivational speaker. Do you know, like, hey, I'm going to show you how to make millions off property.
Yeah, it's a bit Tony Robbins. It's a bit The Secret. Yeah, completely.
What would your skeptic name be?
Your psychic name.
Yeah, your psychic name, sorry.
No, I can't think of one off the top. But I mean, why would it matter what your name is?
I think because the whole thing is how you sell yourself, isn't it? Like, look,
Elton John.
Elton
Gone. Elton Gone. I'd have it. There you go. I'd have Elton Gone. There you go.
So I went to see Joe Power when he was in Liverpool, and there's a lady in the audience, and she's talking about her son who committed suicide. Okay, incredibly grim.
Sad.
She's clearly very moved talking about this, and he was somebody who I think he jumped from a window. Is what happened to him? Awful stuff. And Joe Power pauses for a second and says, "He didn't jump. He was pushed."
Oh,
That lady goes away and spends the rest of her life looking for a killer who doesn't exist.
That's
respect on him there. He's ballsed out, hasn't he?
I mean, it's a big move, but like that lady's, the rest of her life has changed. The rest of her life is now the moment she found out that her son was actually killed and didn't commit suicide. So all the stuff that you've done to process what you went through is gone. I was going to say it's thrown out the window. That would be incredibly insensitive way of describing that. But, so I think that's a very negative thing. And I saw another psychic who's one of the big touring psychics, does shows, would be doing shows 3-4 times a week all around the country.
Is this a psychic that's known for suing people, which is why you have eschewed this person's name?
There are a number of psychics who are very familiar with lawyers, and there are a number of psychics lawyers we are very familiar with.
Really?
It's a big thing, this industry. I think I'd probably want to.
It's not a massive thing, but there's a couple who get really big. And so like Derek Okoro was massive, and as his sort of star started to fade, someone like Colin Fry came up and he became massive and was everywhere.
Rock and bucket.
I was thinking the same thing.
And so you have kind of one or two who'll be kind of at the peak of the game. And
So it's funny that you said Colin Fry, because that's the name of the sound tech at the Frog and Bucket.
Oh, really?
Who's been doing the sound there for at least 20 years, right? And if there was ever a person that would not be a psychic, it's him, because he's famously dour.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think psychics have to have some sort of like, hey, you got to believe me. Hey,
there's got to be something. There's got to be some sort of charisma.
Whereas he would be like, I could not give a fuck whether or not you believe me or not. He would definitely be like, no, I was pushed. Do you know what I mean? And that'd be the end of it. I can't believe that Joe Power said that. What a prick.
I mean,
it's not the only example of that I've seen. So one really big touring psychic I saw, and I was in the audience for it, and the psychic establishes that a lady in the audience, at the front of the audience, had lost a daughter as a toddler who drowned in a swimming pool. And again, horrible. This young mum, she's maybe in her early 30s, maybe late 20s, something like that, and she's clearly very moved talking about this. And this psychic gets possessed by the spirits of the dead. And in front of an audience of about 1,000 people, in front of this grieving mother.
Don't tell me
it's like these African preacher people that get driving Lamborghinis, aren't they?
Very, very much so.
Jumping around. And
well, you know what? If it was jumping around, that would be something. But just
gargling.
Picture the scene. You got 1,000 people there. You've got this woman who's just admitted that her daughter drowned. In front of this massive audience, the psychic says, "Mommy, I can't breathe. I'm scared. I can't breathe."
Oh, he pretends to be a little girl.
That's fucking horrible.
Either the psychic is genuinely possessed by the spirit of a little girl and can't help coming across as ghoulish and mawkish in that way, or the psychic made an intentional decision to do an impersonation of a dead toddler in front of a grieving mother in front of a paying audience of thousands.
Absolutely.
Shameless.
Second one. Because
there's only two ways I can think about it.
The thing is, though, is if you, like, let's say, for example, let's suspend our disbeliefs. Let's say that it's real, right? And let's say that this person can genuinely connect with a 2-year-old that died from drowning and speak to the mother. Do you think that the 2-year-old would go, "Mummy, help, I'm drowned"? Like,
no.
Like,
that's what the noise would be if it was genuinely channeling the last bit of the child's life.
You're not actually channeling the child. You're just assuming what the child might have said. Because surely if the child was in the afterlife, it would be like, if there's such a thing, then surely the child would be like, Mum, I'm fine, don't worry about it, chill.
Which is what you get from a lot of psychics. That's the story that they'll do. But that doesn't sell. That doesn't sell as much. You can fill an audience of 1,000 people if you do a couple of those shock ones each show, and those ones people remember.
What is the profile of these people? Are they just vulnerable people that are just looking for something? They got a pain that they need to... Because to me, it's such a stupid thing to even comprehend that people... Like, it's just like, why the fuck? Like, how vulnerable are that woman with the dead?
Well,
I think vulnerability is a big part of the audience. It's why I would never criticize anybody who goes to see a psychic, anybody who's going to those kind of things. I don't sort of disparage them. I don't sort of
recruiting for
judge
ISIS,
them.
Isn't it? It's just the same thing, preying on the vulnerable people of society. Yeah, I can deal with your grief that you're struggling with.
Well, I can understand it because
60 quid an hour.
The grief of losing someone you loved is one of the hardest things we can ever go through. Yes. And there's only certain different ways we can process that. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in an afterlife, so we just have to deal with it. We can't be like, oh, they're in the next room and I'll see them in 60 years' time. They're gone, and all you can do is just kind of process that and try and get through that. But for some people, if you're in the worst spot in your life, you're the biggest hole you could ever be in, and someone says, actually, it's not that bad. I can still contact the person you love. They're not lost. That's going to be incredibly persuasive at the worst moment in your life. And so I think the reason that I do the stuff that I do is because I think we all have a kind of an obligation almost to protect people in that position, because I'm going to be in that hole at some point, and I want someone else to help me when I'm there.
Me and you are quite similar in that respect then, because I have gone on the record before to say that I think psychics that claim that they can talk to the dead is literally fucking disgusting. I think it's the single most fucked up, horrific scam that there is going. Because what you are doing is and there's no other way for it, you are taking advantage of somebody who is grieving and is unable to think straight. And I think it's just horrendously bad. And it knocks me,
But
sick.
then it's the same people who do put stuff up on, like on Facebook, people who say inspiring things. It's like, what you're doing. It's the same. They're the same kind of people, I think, go to psychics. So I know it's a bit of a different sort of comparison, but you're going like it's horrendous. But if people are willing to do it, I mean, there's loads of shit that goes on in life.
All right. So here's the thing, right? If you get
slaves.
So here's the thing, though, is if you get a boiler fitted by somebody, then they need to be gas corgi registered. They need to. You can't just let anyone come round and fit a boiler because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You can't just let any builder come and do a loft conversion for you. It has to pass codes and regulations so that it is safe, so that you are not letting cowboys take advantage of people. And why do we not have the same thing with this? Okay, if you want to charge that you can speak to dead people, great. Well, there's this independent body here, and you got to sit down, and you got to, over the course of a day, you got to get your psychic certificate off a bunch of independent people. And if you can do that, fucking fine. If not, then you are operating unlicensed.
So you have to try and do the thing for people that aren't grieving.
No, I mean...
Like speak to my nana, like, I'm not grieving.
Yeah, she died ages ago. She died 15 years ago.
Yeah. So, like, speak to somebody that I'm not that sad about.
Yeah.
Rather than people who've done... Right, you got to convince... Right, so he's convinced a 20-year-old about his nan who lived till she was 90.
Mate,
he was speaking to her.
It's fucked up the amount of murder investigations that they wheedle their way onto, and they end up making, especially in America, they do more harm than good.
Yeah. Well, and so
they get a murder investigation.
Oh, yeah.
They do. So the police don't ask them.
Hang on.
The police don't ask them to, but they just offer information. But if you're the police, you have to follow that information up, because what if the person who says they're psychic isn't psychic? They just happen to be somewhere and saw something and don't want to admit why they were there. Yeah. So, like, I think you'll find the body in those woods. If you were there doing something else dodgy, you can't be like, oh shit, I can't admit that.
And they use it as legitimacy as well. They use it as like a fucking seal of approval, because then they put on their website, well, I've been working with the Wichita County Police on the very high profile, Jane Doe murder.
What's your opinion on Derek Acora?
I mean, 40, Derek Acora is dead, so can't sue anybody. So Derek Acora was not psychic. He did not have psychic ability. He was caught out even cheating on several occasions, one of which famously on Most Haunted, where he connected with the spirit of a guy called Creed Kafer, who was a South African jailer at this haunted jail, but Creed Kafer didn't exist. Creed Kafer was an anagram of Derek Faker. And the information was planted amongst the team because they knew that Derek was listening to some of the research that was being done, and then regurgitating that on camera.
Did he do the South African accent?
I can't remember if he did the accent.
Fucking pruds.
Scouse South Africa.
But he was huge. He was the guy who was everywhere. But even after he'd been caught, he was the guy who was everywhere on tours. It was the same with Colin Fry. Colin Fry was caught doing a séance. A classic bit of Victorian séance is you'd have objects that would start to levitate in the dark, and you put like little sort of glow dots on them so you could see them, and they'd start to levitate. And there'd be a thing called the spirit trumpet. That as you're all holding hands in the séance, the trumpet would.
It's where she
you get a fan and then he just puts it on your arsehole while she does that.
She bends over and then you bend over at a different angle.
It's a trombone, isn't it?
It's the rusty trombone, the one that you're thinking of.
God, yeah.
So you've got a spirit trumpet, and the idea is in the middle of the séance, the spirits start playing the trumpet. Someone turned the light on in the middle of the trumpet being played, and Colin stood up with a trumpet at his mouth.
That's so funny.
And he gets away with it by saying, "Oh, I was possessed by the spirits, and that's why I was just playing it." And that was before he got a TV show.
Do you know what? I would love to see the recording of that, where there's a half a second where he's got the trumpet in his mouth and he's thinking, it's a little shit. Woo! Do you know what? There was one that got caught out. Now, I'm going to mention the name of this person, and I know that this person likes to sue people. So I will, you don't have to go one way or the other, but I will say that this person is a fucking fraud, Psychic Sally. So do you know who Psychic Sally is?
No.
Psychic.
Sidekick.
No.
Psychic.
Yes, psychic,
Sally
not
Morgan.
Sidekick Sally. We've literally been talking about psychics.
I know, but I just was convinced. I knew it was psychic, but then I was just.
No, so Psychic Sally, and she does enjoy
Sidekick.
suing people, but I've got nothing, Sally, so, all for nothing is still fuck all, so I'm not afraid. So there's a famous...
Lost your book deal as well.
I lost my book deal as well, so I've got even less than nothing. You can have half my book.
These studios are just going to be the end of you, aren't they?
Oh, mate. So, right, here's a famous story about Psychic Sally. It
does sound like Sidekick. I'm not...
Is it in Dublin by any chance?
It's the one of the pictures... I think it was in Middlesbrough, actually.
Yes, yeah.
So, Psychic Sally, I really tried to say it then. I really tried to...
It sounds like Sidekick. Are you say? Can you...
Right, so Sally Morgan, right, a.k.a. Psychic Sally, right, she did this thing where she asked people to bring in a photograph of a loved one that had passed away and leave it on the stage during the break, okay? Now, when the show resumed, she went back onto the stage and she felt her way through psychic energy, sort of feeling through it, and she picks one photo out and she goes, "Oh, who has this one here?" And it's a woman, who stands up and makes her way onto the stage. And the picture that she's picked up is this black and white photo of a woman, you know what I mean? And so Psychic says, "Oh, well, this is somebody who passed away quite a long time ago, am I right?" And the woman was like, "No." And she was like, well, she's been ill for quite a while, but you know how they do, like fishing and stuff like that. Psychic Sally couldn't get nothing on this fucking picture, nothing at all. Anyway, it turns out that the woman had gotten confused and not brought in a photograph of a dead person. She brought in a photograph of her as a younger person.
Right.
And Psychic Sally just done a reading in front of 300 people.
Yeah.
It's all bollocks.
We know that. But then Marsh is here to tell us, make it a bit more interesting.
So we tried to challenge Psychic Sally on exactly that photo thing. The guy in Middlesbrough who went along to see that show and found that, it was someone that I know, and we were talking, and the reason he went along is because I gave a talk in Middlesbrough about how bad psychics actually are, and he couldn't believe it was that bad, and went along to the show himself and was like, "God, it is that bad. It really is that shit." It's a guy called Miles. So we tried to challenge Sally. So what we did was... in Liverpool on Halloween, just worked out perfectly. Sally was in Liverpool the day before Halloween. So we're like, right, Halloween, we've got a room, like a conference room in a hotel. We've seen your show. We know you do that picture thing. So we've got 5 people to bring in pictures of their loved ones. We'll give you the 5 pictures. You write down what you can get from those pictures. Then we'll give all 5 readings to each of the 5 people, and they should be able to pick out from the reading, that's mine. And if you do that and get all 5 right, that's above chance. It's very unlikely you've done that by chance. Completely unlikely. We heard from Sally Morgan we heard from Sally Morgan's lawyer. One of the first times we got contacted by Sally Morgan's lawyer said Sally Morgan has got better things to do than to take any test. She refused to take it.
AKA, she can't think of that many Barnum statements to get away with it.
Once you put these 5 reading, if somebody was just doing it's called cold reading, the various different techniques you can use in order to appear psychic. If somebody was just doing that, and you just had to do that 5 times on bits of paper, and then present all 5 of those readings at once to people, it'd be very hard to find the one that fits just one person without all 5 fitting them.
Well, yeah. So I used to do a thing on TikTok, right? You know, like TikTok has TikTok lives, right? So I used to do a thing on there called Psychic Freddy, where what I would do is I would match with somebody that I didn't know, tell them that I was a psychic medium that offered free psychic readings, and I would basically just do very rudimentary cold reading and Barnum Do you know what Barnum statements are?
No, but I imagine it's something that sort of it encapsulates a lot of.
Yes,
it sort of covers a lot of wide.
It's something that, like, for example,
have you got a daughter?
Yeah. No, it's not even like that.
It's way vague like that. It's something that would apply to pretty much everyone. It feels like it's very personal, but
so
actually applies to
a
everyone.
really easy one. No, well, sort of, yeah, but like this, right? So you're somebody who has got quite a wide circle of acquaintances. You know quite a few people. However, you know, there's only a few people that are really what you define as really close friends. And if we're actually drilling deeper down into that, I don't think there's anyone that really knows 100% the real you. I don't think you reveal all of yourself to anyone and people go, oh my God, that sounds exactly like me. No shit. It's literally fucking... It's like when people put in dating profiles and shit, good sense of humour. It's like, yeah, everyone fucking thinks they've got a good sense of humour. No one's like, oh, I'm dry as fuck, me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just how people are. So if you do loads of Barnum statements are a really easy way of you establishing that connection with somebody. And I do it on TikTok. I do it all the fucking time. You do lives on there, and there will be people who were like, their minds were blown.
So give me an example of a Barnum statement.
I've literally just given you an example of one then.
What good sense of humour?
No, the one where I said you've got
the
wide circle of friends.
Not everyone knows you deeply well, or you're someone who can be outgoing in the right situation, but occasionally you do. Well, in other situations, you find yourself being a bit more kind of introverted and shy.
Shit.
Yeah,
it applies to everybody.
You know, you're somebody who can be quite impulsive, but also at times you second guess yourself. Yeah, that'll be all the time. It's. Do you know what?
Oh my God, that's just like me, Fabio.
So, and what psychics will do at psychic shows, they'll do a mix of that and things that are closer to hot reading. So there's some things that psychics do.
Imagine if I left today and I was like, you know what, I think it's all true.
You convinced specifically that Fred is psychic.
Do a part 2 of me having an argument with Mark.
Yeah. So there's one thing that some psychics do. Sally Morgan does it. She does a thing at the start of her show called Sally's Love Letters, where before you get into the audience, there's little bits of paper lying around the foyer where you fill in the question you want to ask to the dead and what your name is, and those get folded up and put in a big glass bowl, and they go on stage. They go on stage via the backstage. Now, if somebody wanted to cheat, they just grab a handful of those and read them ahead of time and then regurgitate those readings on stage. So I think if you're going to do something like that, it's best not to take it backstage so everyone can see it the whole time. But the other thing about that particular paper thing is that looks an awful lot like a very well-known fraudulent technique called a billet read, which is done in the 19th century, or the heyday of kind of Victorian spiritualism, where spiritualism as a religion is based on the idea that there's an afterlife because psychics can talk to the dead. So when you go to a spiritualist church, you get a psychic reading there because that's proof of the afterlife. And what spiritualist churches would do is they'd have the same thing, a bit of paper called a billet. You'd write your question for the dead on it. You'd seal it in the envelope, and that would go into the box and go on stage. And the psychic would pick out the envelope, hold it aloft, and without opening it, they'd read your question and answer it from spirit. And then they'd open the billet and confirm it. That was enough to convince people that the person on stage was psychic. Unless you were a magician in the audience, because you know 3, 4, 5 different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
One way is the envelope goes translucent when it gets wet. So you dip your thumb in a glass of water, you rub it across the front of the envelope, and you can read what's inside of it. The other way is even lovelier than that, because it requires no special method, no special equipment. It's called the one-ahead method. You can try it with your friends. It's fantastic. What you need is the first piece of paper. You just need to know what's on the first piece of paper. Okay, so what you do is you can say, if you get like 10 friends, they all write on a piece of paper a secret word that you couldn't possibly know.
Oh shit!
Fold it all up.
Simon doesn't have 10 friends. He's got
He's got
lots
a
of
few who know him
acquaintances.
really well. There's
A
a
few
few
that he knows
well.
really well, but not many.
And so what you do is you've got your 10 folded up bits of paper, and you grab the first one. You see, look, I can't read through it. You can see the word on it, but when I fold it up, you can't read it. When you've done that, you've read the word.
Yeah.
You then grab the second word and say, right, on here is the word, whatever was on the first piece.
Yeah.
Is that yours? Oh, yeah, I confirm I'm right. You're now reading the second word, and you pick up the third piece of paper, you tell them the second word was on it. Was that right? You now got the fourth word,
Hang on.
third word.
Freddie, your comment
Through you.
me, so I didn't understand.
Right, so now he's got to go over it again.
Yeah, because of you.
It's called the one ahead method.
Yeah,
right.
so
Once you know what's on the first piece of paper, right?
And I find
you've
that
got
out.
that. So you can say, you're looking at the piece of paper, you say, look, you can see I can't see through this. You can see the word is on there, but when I fold it up, you can't see through them. So I couldn't possibly cheat. You've just seen the first word. You put it there, you go, right, now I'm going to do the first one. You pick up the second piece of paper and say, right, on this is, and you say the first word, because you know that's definitely one of them. And the person goes, shit, yeah, that's my word. And you go, was it? Oh, yeah, I was right. Now you read the second word. You put it over there, you pick up the third piece of paper and say, right, on this piece of paper is the second word.
I don't follow. I would be...
Do you know what?
If I went to the pub and said, here, lad, write a word on it. And
Do you know what?
there you go, fuck off, I'm not doing that.
You are why psychics could pretend to be psychics.
Exactly,
Even when you explain the trick.
Mate, you're not even amazed by the trick. You're amazed by somebody describing the trick.
Do you follow that?
Mate,
All right, then you do it now.
So what you're doing is, the reason that it's called the one ahead method is because you're basically picking the one that you've just read every time, innit? That's what you're doing. Right, so look, right.
Have you got a video of this that I can watch if we have a break? Are you following it? You're following it. Fuck.
Do you know what? The thing is it's
oh yeah, I get
it's
that,
so funny that Marsh is like, oh, you can do this with your friends in the pub. And it's like, do you have any idea how pissed I get? Like, I can't work my own keys in the door.
I'll be there every 2 hours at the end of the bar, like, no, this is, no, I don't want to lie, lads, let me finish this first.
Bottom line, you don't need to be psychic, but it can persuade people to psychic.
Right,
so
okay.
when Sally Morgan does the piece of paper
Right.
folded in the bowl, I would say that's unfortunate, because I've got no psychic ability, but my advice to anybody with psychic ability is try to avoid doing anything on stage that is indistinguishable from a very well-known magic trick, because people might get confused as to whether what you're doing is a magic trick or psychic ability.
Right.
Yeah, if you go on stage as a psychic in a top hat and you go, anyone lost a white rabbit? Hey!
Like a Tommy Cooper sort of psychic, where he gets it wrong, but then he gets it right.
Oh, fucking hell, man.
Right.
So here's a question for you, right? Here's something that I want to ask about psychics. And I've always kind of struggled with this belief myself, right? So how many of them, what percentage of them do you think are actual cowboy rip-off merchants that know exactly what they're doing and are just bullshitting their way through in order to make a quick buck doing something morally ambiguous? And what percentage of them do you think actually believe that they're psychic, and what they have done is they have mistaken psychic ability and intuition?
Yeah. So it's really hard to put an exact number on it, because I can't tell what anybody's thinking, because nobody's psychic. So it's impossible to know for certain how many.
Love how we got to dig in there. I love how we got to dig in.
I think the majority of people who think they've got psychic skills are persuading themselves, and actually just are good at understanding a bit about humans, because we all have the similar kind of concerns. It's why Barnum statements work. I think it'd be very easy for you to start doing readings for your friends and family. Thinking, I've always had a bit of an intuition, maybe it's psychic, I'll start doing readings for my friends and family. Now, if you said, this is going to happen to you tomorrow, and then it doesn't happen, you say that to your daughter or your mum or whatever, and it doesn't happen, she's not going to come back and say, you're full of shit. But when it does happen, she's going to come back and say, oh, you were right about that, by the way.
My mum would 100% do
People
that.
who've got a very supportive family aren't going to
Do you think that's where they come
them.
from? People who've just been sort of
It might
wrapped in
be-
cotton wool and be like, never been told you were fucking idiots.
Yeah,
your
it's-
friends and family,
They wouldn't even acknowledge. They go, "Oh right."
No
Carry
psychics.
on doing
No
whatever they're
psychics come from a northern working class family. Come here, Dad. I'm going to read your future. You are fuckers like I'm watching the telly. Right. So it says here that you've got money coming in. No, I'm fucking not. You still live at home, you fat cunt. Come on, get out.
So, but I think at the very least, you're mostly going to get positive affirmation. When something does connect, they're going to be like, "Oh God, you said that thing. It was actually right." And so eventually, if you had enough of that, you might start doing it for strangers. And as you're starting to do readings for strangers, you might start to think, well, actually, when I try to talk about this subject, I'm not very good. But when I talk about these subjects, I tend to be quite accurate. And what you're doing is you're accidentally training yourself on what you can do easy cold reading on. Romance, jobs, travel, money, health.
I know some people that I've worked with that have visited these people, like with the cards and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, and these people that I've gone, these are normal. And then I found out they did it, and I was like, why did you do that?
So
I was just
let me
away.
so let me show you like one of the ways that I feel like they operate, right? So Finn, our wonderful producer, I don't know much about you personally. No. Okay. So what I would do is if we were doing romantic cold reading, the first thing that I'd do is I wouldn't say, you've got a girlfriend. I wouldn't say, something like that, because I'm putting myself in a corner there where you're going to say, yes or no. Totally. The game is to get you to make the connections, not me. So what I would say is, am I right in saying that there's a special person in your life that you are particularly fond of? And then you would most likely say yes. Do you know what I mean? So, because the thing is I've not even assumed gender there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I said there's a special person that you're fond of. That could be a girlfriend, it could be a wife, it could be a fiance, it could even be somebody that you're just talking to at the moment that you just like, and you're the one that's making the connections. And so depending on what you give me is what I would say. And that's how they work most of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the mental thing
Great.
is that... but the thing is, though, is that
Ask him some more.
The thing is, though, is that they come away with... they come away and they go, oh, well, he knew that I had a girlfriend. Yeah. He knew that we'd been together for 6 months. And when in actual fact, what they did was you made that connection, you gave them that information, and they just went, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so sneaky what they do.
When it comes to sort of talking to the dead, it won't be your dad's here. So I'm getting a father figure on the other side. Now that could be a dad, it could be a stepdad, it could be a granddad, it could be an uncle, it could be a friend of the family who is just like a bit of a mentor to you. And you connect that. I'm getting a father figure. Does that make sense to you? And people won't just say yes or no to that. They'll say, yes, my dad. And even if people just say yes, does that make sense to you? They go, yes. They'll say, well, who is it? Because they'll feel then that they've got license to ask that question because you've already made the connection, and you won't notice that you're then giving them all that information. And when it comes to people dying, it won't be. And so it was a heart attack, wasn't it? It'll never be that. It'll be. So it was very sudden at the end, wasn't it? Which could be anything, because it could be a heart attack, a car crash. It could be cancer that they had for 18 years, but the last moment was sudden because death is sudden. You're alive, and then you're not. It's always sudden at the end.
Nobody dies like pregnancy over the course of like several hours where you lie down and the doctor's going, come on, push. It's you just
1% left. Get on YouTube to try and make it quicker. 1% just won't go.
Do you know what I do as well if I'm pretending to be a psychic is I'll establish some trust.
Have you tried?
Do it all the time. Do it literally all the time. It's a piece of fucking piss, right? And I'll establish some trust by doing shitty Barnum statements.
Charging for it and that?
No, I'm doing... So what I used to do on TikTok is I used to do it. I used to do the reading. I used to get them to believe it. And then I go, do you want me to believe your future? Sorry, do you want me to read your future? And they go, yeah. And I go, okay. Says you die in 6 months. And I'd watch them go, and I go, I'm full of shit. I can't do it. And then that was the joke, basically.
I see a massive disappointment in your future in about 3 seconds when I tell you I'm not actually psychic, and suddenly you'll have a massive disappointment.
So here's the thing, right, is what I would do is I'd establish a bit of trust, first of all, and you can see when somebody believes what you're talking about because their body language shifts, right? So they go from being like, and you can see in body language, they're far back like this, And then once they start to believe, you can see them get up a little bit, they move closer a bit, and they all do it, right? And then what I would do is I'd use that opportunity to take a punt on something.
Yeah.
That if I get it right,
Love gambling.
if I get it right, but that's all this is. That's all this is gambling in a sense.
Yeah.
Is that
And
you're
then it
just
doesn't come in. Fuck.
no, but if it doesn't come in, you explain it away and move on because
There's a
don't.
million different outs. I saw an amazing psychometrist, which is another type of psychics, but they use it by doing jewelry reading, stuff like that. The best I've ever seen, the ballsiest I've ever seen at doing the outs, when you've got something wrong, because it's very easy to get out of something. You've got a scar on your left knee. If they haven't got a scar on the left knee, it's on the right knee. Most people have scars on their knees, if not their elbows. They'll have scars somewhere around the limb. So you've got a scar on your left knee. It's not, well, it's your right knee, but I was correct about knees. It's your elbow, but I knew it was on a joint. You know, I knew you had a scar. I was getting a scar. I was then trying to. So you can always spin it out.
I'm freaked out now.
Everybody has fallen over at some point, so everybody's got something going on because you land on your knee. So it's a good chance guess that most people is going to be true for.
Everyone's got bad.
Exactly. But that's the easy way out of just the sort of the very obvious outs. This one psychic was incredible because she was saying, I'm getting an image of, they're trying to give me an image of a fruit bowl on a mantelpiece. There was a glass fruit bowl on a mantelpiece with an apple in it. Does that make sense to you? And the woman says, no. Now, any other psychic would say, well, it's not an apple, but an orange. It's not a glass bowl, but a plastic bowl. It's not on the mantelpiece, it's on a table. Somewhere there's a fruit bowl in your house. She didn't do that. She went even further. She went, no, there's definitely a glass fruit bowl on the mantelpiece with an apple in it. And now they're showing me a banana balanced on top of the apple. Sometimes even I don't know what they're trying to tell me. Anyway, and moves on. I thought, that is balls.
That's brilliant.
That's absolute balls.
Do you know what? They do it quite a lot as well, where they go, like, so they predict something, it doesn't land, and they go, oh, well, that might make sense to you later on.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's your fault.
It's your fault.
It's like a joke not working, isn't it?
You'll get that one on the way home.
A 20-minute set with just nothing landing.
You'll be laughing about it tomorrow, I'll give you that much. You'll wake up in the middle of the night. Oh,
He just died on his arse for that reason, hasn't he?
So, do you know what I used to do when I used to sort of take a punt? I used to take a gamble. The one that I used to do is this was my favourite one to do, if I was talking to a woman, late 20s, early 30s, what I'd do is I'd say, am I right in thinking that you have issues trusting people when you're in a relationship because something's happened in a previous relationship where that trust has been undermined? And
that is good.
It literally happens every fucking time. Because what woman, late 20s, early 30s, goes, no, they've all been wonderful up to now. No.
That's the age range. After 26, they're done.
Yes. After 20.
I said this to my mate about his online dating profile. He's got it to like 25 to 34, and I was like, bruh, that is not what you want to be setting at, because they're all damaged there.
Yeah,
18 to 24 is the age.
After
That's
that,
when they have that hope of everything working out.
Anything
29.
Anything after that is snake's hunt. That's what it is. So, but yeah, honestly, every single time that would work without fail. And notice how I didn't say you've been cheated on.
Yeah.
Because
it could be anything.
They go, no. It could be literally anything. It could be a boyfriend who was texting somebody who was possessive over his phone, who said that he wasn't in places where he was. And everybody's had that. But I tended to find that women connected with it stronger than men. Like, I don't know if that's a gender thing, but I don't think men
Maybe you put more effort into speaking to the women. You were sitting there, the 30-year-old bloke thing, and I don't want to fucking speak to women.
Is there a gendered split in what kind of people go and get psychic readings?
Yes, yeah. So it tends to be women. And part of the reason... part of the reason, honestly, part of the reason...
Of course it is.
But part of the reason is just the way I think we socialise men and women, because men tend to be more attracted to conspiracy theories, so like 9/11, moon landing, stuff like that. And then women, the pseudoscience that targets women tends to be psychic ability and alternative medicine.
Do you know what?
We bring boys up saying, you're very rational, you're very mathematical, you're very engineering-y, and we bring girls up saying, oh, you're going to be a mother. That's the way society treats us.
Do you know what? We should start a psychic reading thing where we give men psychic readings that are based around conspiracy theories. So we go, oh, do you want to connect with your nan? The FBI killed her.
Fucking knew it.
Do you know what? It was very sudden. That's what fucking got me onto it. Oh shit.
But yeah, so I think that's why the majority of people who will be drawn to it are women. It's funny what you were saying before about the trust. I think I was really the establishing trust. That reminds me of something that.
Are you okay?
What you said about establishing trust in order to be able to then sell the psychic ability afterwards. That's something that this same psychic who, as I say, was the best at getting out of stuff I've ever seen. She had an incredible one, because what a lot of psychics will do, there's the kind of extending the psychic ability to the sitter by saying like, oh, you're intuitive as well, you're psychic as well. Because then if you can compliment them by saying, oh, you're very intuitive, they're more likely to believe that this is real, because then they're going to believe that they're also part of it.
Do you know what?
Of the system.
It's so weird that you said that. That was part of my patois at the beginning. So what I would say is I would ask them, patois.
Patter.
It's patter, not patois.
Patois is
Jamaican
slang.
I mean, we don't know what he was like as a psychic.
That's what I used to do at the beginning of my psychic readings. Wagwan! Wagwan, brethren! We be connecting with your dead relatives, man. Wow, that's going to be cancelled. So what I would do is I would say, as part of my patter, I would say, just very quickly, how receptive are you to psychic readings and stuff like that? And they would either say, yeah, I believe in it, or not at all, or they'd say, most of the time they'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. And I'd say, well, that's great. The reason being is because this is a two-way connection. And if you're somebody who is completely closed off to it, then I can't make that connection with you. Because it has to be a two-way thing. And even if you've just got an open mind, then that's all I need to make that psychic link with you.
Yeah,
and
which is just saying to people, don't say no to me, meet me halfway. If I ask you a question, answer it. If I say something vague, fill in the gaps. It's just literally
I don't understand why that now is not enough to convince people that it's not true.
No,
but
but
I mean, that to me is just like, of course it's bollocks.
No, but here's the thing, right? So I can't remember. The reason that I said that is I can't remember where this came from, but there's a quote that says, to those that believe, no explanation is necessary. To those that do not, none will suffice. And it's the same thing. If you're open to psychic readings or you believe in it, then you will always look for a reason to believe in it. And my God, do psychics give you loads of like little reasons to believe what they're saying. Whereas if you if you go in going, this is bollocks, you'll see every time that they fail, and oh shit, do they miss a lot of their throws. Yeah. Like they missed loads.
Always record a psychic reading and listen to it back, but first write down what you think happened, and then listen to it back and it's totally different.
Well, this brings me on to the next bit, because you do a fair bit of recording, don't you? And it's fucking wonderful. So Marsh sent me some, and there's something you can find on YouTube dead easily. What do you search for if you want to look at these?
It's Good Thinking Investigates Palmistry.
Mate, it is beautiful. So they're going in with palm readers, right? And is it you that does the recording?
Yeah. So my wife was living in Blackpool at the time. It was before we were married, because that came up in the reading, that you're not married. It came up in the reading. So it was before we were married, and my wife was living in Blackpool, and I was just bored wandering down the front, and there's constantly down the pier on Blackpool, you see these little psychic booths, little palmistry booths. And I thought, bugger it, I do this for a living, I might as well pop in and see what a palm reading's actually like. And I had an undercover camera with me at the time.
Well,
this little pen
camera.
How much
do they charge on the Blackpool thing?
Well, so it was 20 quid for a standard reading. No, I think it was 30 quid for a standard reading, 40 quid for a full reading, or 100 quid for a reading with a crystal ball.
£100.
So right, I went in for a 30 quid reading. And said, I just want 30 quid for standard reading. She said, well, I think you should pay the £40 reading, because a standard reading just tells you about you now, whereas £40 will tell you about the future. I said, well, I know a lot about me now. She says, well, I think you should go for the £40
She was so ballsy.
Straight in.
As well.
Straight
like
in.
Literally, it was £20 and £30.
Yeah, that was it.
And you went, I'll just do the £20. And she went, I think you should do the £30 one. Love the reason for the £30 one is you've got quite a lot going on in your future. You should pay for the £30 one.
Exactly that.
And you were like, what? Like she was literally that front.
Absolutely.
Do you know what made me laugh so much is so you can see you just because there's a mirror on one side. There's a mirror on the left-hand side of the room, right? And so you can see you in a white shirt with what is very obviously a camera here. I've never, honestly,
this is it. Right,
honestly,
okay,
I've never looked at anything more before and gone, that's a fucking camera in my life. It's like a weird
It's just a guy
lapel
carrying
that
a
sits
very
here.
chunky pen in his pocket. Obviously,
It's
as normal.
Honestly, the pen's like this wide.
Yeah, it's
the pen's got a fucking telescopic lens. The pen says Canon on it. That's how fucking obvious it is.
It was a 30 quid reading. How long do you think I got for a 30 quid reading?
£30. I don't. 10 minutes.
It was less than 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what was genius?
What the fuck? Was it like 5 to 6 or something?
Well, do you know what's genius as well?
Have a great life. Put him in the bag. He's on the,
Yes.
Shake his ass off.
Basically, yes.
The bus is late. I didn't see that coming.
Have you seen the video? You must have seen the video. You're basically describing it.
So
I haven't seen
honestly,
it, but I need
mate.
to.
So she reaches into she reaches into a Chinese takeaway bag, gets a
does that
fortune cookie, rips it up. You'll find happiness, right? Fuck off, lad. So honestly, right. What's brilliant, and I only realised this through watching your work, but what is brilliant about the hustle of reading someone's future is that you can't turn around and go no, because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So they go, oh, well, so for example, with you, they mentioned that you're in a relationship.
Well, they didn't even mention I was in a relationship. It was now, there is someone special in your life, isn't there? No, it wasn't. It was, now you've got a married man's hand, but you're not married, are you? Which is a very two-ended, it's a double-ended question, because if you are married, you go, yes, I am married, and you did say I had a married man's hand, so you were right.
Oh, this is
if
the
you're not
palm,
married,
isn't it? No,
you can
right.
say, well, I'm not married, and you did say I wasn't married, so you're right. So it's impossible to be wrong on that, because you're containing both sides of it in one question.
Hand.
Yeah.
It's not like in my back pocket
And then
just
what
grab it out. Yeah, Steve.
You got a married man's hand.
But you're not married, are you? But isn't there someone special in your life? And you are in a relationship now.
Were you
and
married at the time?
No, I wasn't. This was before MO, so I was saying no to all this. And what we did on the video is every time she asked me a question, we play a little bell noise, ding, and stick a number in the top corner to count up the number of questions she asked me in 4 minutes. And it was like 25 questions. She's just peppering me with questions. You are in a relationship, and have you seen her today? Is she older than you? Isn't there a barrier or an obstacle of some sort in your life? Is she married? Has she been married? Has she got kids?
4 minutes this all went on.
Peppered me with questions like that. And it was stuff like, now you have been through what you wouldn't want to go through again, but it is a long lane with a turning. You're now at that turning point. Now I see a crossing of water on your hand, and you are going to go abroad in the future. Have you gone in for further education of some kind? And that was exactly what it was like. And it was just that speed, that
like
much
ticking
interest.
box. That just sounds like she's literally just doing her spiel.
Oh, you might think she
and
was
then
reading
getting
it
you
from
out.
a script.
Yeah.
So the way you test that is you go back with 4 mates and send them in throughout the course of the day with a camera to see if they get the same reading.
And you did that.
And we've got a video we put up where we do it split screen, line by line to each
But is
of
it
the
not
different
like
people.
on Blackpool? Is it not just like that kind of stall? It's just like a little shit. But 30 quid is a lot of money for 5
Well,
minutes.
she charged
but
one of the people that we send in 100 quid and give him the same reading. And,
4
and
minutes.
he went in saying that that he had we give him backstories to say just how damaging this can be. He went in saying he had gambling debts, that he couldn't pay his rent, but there was a big tournament.
100 quid.
You know, there's a big poker tournament coming up, and he reckons he could win on it. And she said, "Well, how much have you won in the past?" And he said, "Oh, like a couple of £100." Oh no,
remember
you've got
doing this
way more
palm
than that
reading.
coming up. You've got way more money than that coming into you.
Do you reckon that she heard gambling debts and big poker tournament coming up? She makes an assessment on what kind of person that person is, a gambler, somebody who is...
so she said that he was going to win the tournament.
She said he should carry on what he's doing because there's a lot of money coming to him.
Right.
Even though he said he couldn't pay the rent.
Wow.
Yeah. But also as well, she'll have made an assessment on his character, known that he's likely to take risks, because that's what gamblers do. And
I
100
don't
quid.
think she did. I don't think she's that astute, this woman.
No,
I
that's...
think she hasn't got a clue. She's literally...
That's the whole fucking
She
business.
did to anchor him up to the £100.
That's the whole business. Is they come in and
I'm
they,
reading for
look,
4 minutes.
The thing
then.
is they're not fucking idiots. They're not stupid. They're grifters. So they come in and they look at what you're wearing, what you're doing, how you're holding yourself, and they immediately go 20 quid, 30 quid, 100 quid. They know.
The only part of her job is to anchor you to whatever price she thinks she can get out of you, and then regurgitate the reading.
So she'll be able to see, if I rock up, she goes, "Oh, this cunt's not here to get it." He knows just get 20 quid off him if we can.
So here's the thing: if you go into a car dealership wearing a fucking 3-piece suit, they're not going to show you the fucking Kia Picantos, are they? Do you know what I mean? They're not going to go, "Oh, we've got a lovely."
But that happens all the time. Doesn't that happen with Oprah? Didn't it, when she went shopping somewhere in Rome and they went, "Oh, sorry, miss, you can't."
But this is this is it. Like, so if you go into a car dealership wearing fucking tracky bottoms and a stained t-shirt and some flip flops,
that man's got money. What car dealership's he in?
Yeah,
He's in the Kia car dealership. I'm thinking, yeah.
But they'll show you the low end stuff of the high end. So everyone does it. It's just these people. They rely on it as their living.
And I don't think that 20 quid reading is there because anyone's going to get it. It's there to say this is how cheap it could be, but practically everybody walks in, she's going to immediately try and get them
to
to 30.
You go for the middle one,
well,
you?
yeah,
it's not getting the £500 fridge, not getting the £100, I get the £300.
So there's a thing in marketing called the Goldilocks principle, where what they will do is they will price 3 things. And the idea is that you go for the one in the middle because that's the one that's just right. So they have a cheap option. Nobody wants to go for the cheap option. Then they'll have a slightly more expensive option in the middle. And then they'll have a ridiculously expensive option that nobody fucking goes for. But that makes the middle option look like better value.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. That's how they get away with it.
Yeah, but like you said, like, I rock up. That woman immediately goes, "This guy's just fucking about. He's only going to pay 20 quid for this, and he's not going to."
She goes, "I reckon he's got a tenner on him at most." Look at him.
Then she goes, yeah. Then she goes, yeah. That's all right. Yeah. So then, right. So they'll just make an assessment of your character and go, "I can get 100 quid off this."
Because that's the only job. Because after that, it's just reading the script, and it's almost identical. There's a few little variants in there.
It's just like comedy.
Like
yeah. Oh, like honestly, no word of a lie.
Then I got off the bus, and that's the same, isn't it?
The parallels between the parallels between the way psychics deliver their spiel and the way comedians deliver their spiel is huge. So, for example, you'll know as a comedian that how you start is probably the most important. Because if you start well, particularly in the first 2 minutes, first 60 seconds, if you start well and you're funny, then the audience goes, "Oh, this person's funny. I can relax now." And so everything that you say afterwards, they're like, "Oh, well, we know this guy's funny, so it's going to be funny." Psychics are the same shit. They get loads of really quick, little easy wins at the beginning, loads of little Barnum statements, and they get you going, "Oh, this person does know about me." And then that makes the rest of their reading easier.
Yeah.
But it must be a nightmare to, like, have it where they're just, you have somebody who's just, nope.
Well, so one of the things we did at that reading and other ones is we sent one of our friends in to not answer any questions, to just be, "Sorry, I don't understand," and just to go to yes, no questions. And
sounds like Borat. What do you mean?
It just
no English.
When you aren't playing the game, when the psychic's asking you for information and you don't give it, everything falls down. It falls down very, very quickly, and it becomes incredibly awkward. And it happened to one friend of mine, and I think not this reading, a different reading. I think the person she was getting a reading from was a true believer, because she started to get like this psychic was getting more and more distressed in the reading and said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you're dead inside." And she's like really worried about it because my friend was giving her nothing back. Like,
that's the last thing, isn't it? Like, "I think you're dead." That's funny.
I had an audience I could have said that to last night.
Did you see that Bruno did it? Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
When he starts sucking out, that was funny. That when he goes to that woman, do the reading.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Yeah, he's in the room now. If you want, what you want to do to him?" Yes, no. And he just gets on his knees and just mimes, giving his
really
it's fucking brilliant. Yeah, the psychic's just sitting there, and he's just there to the side going, "Oh yeah."
You know how you said that you get letters from lawyers and stuff quite a lot.
Occasionally, yeah.
Has anyone ever been successfully sued?
Well, so the Daily Mail lost their case to Sally Morgan.
No. So what was that about then?
So the Daily Mail article alleged that at a show in Dublin, there were people in the audience who were saying things that Sally would say a few seconds later. And the article alleged that that meant those people were feeding Sally information through an earpiece. Sally strenuously denied that. She sued the Daily Mail over it, and the Daily Mail settled for something like £150,000, something like that.
Really? So that's because they said that you were specifically doing it, like a specific way. So if I said, Sally Morgan, you're not psychic, she wouldn't be able to sue me because she'd have to prove that she is.
It's the defamation law in the UK is slightly different to that. It wouldn't be too. If you said you're not psychic, that's fine. Because somebody could say they're psychic and just be wrong about that. They don't have to be lying about that. They don't have to be fraudulent. Okay. So I've met lots of psychics who I think absolutely believe they're psychic, but they aren't psychic.
Yeah.
So if you say, I don't think they're psychic, I don't think you're talking to the dead, that's fine. If you just say, person over there, you are a fraud, that is, not only are you not psychic, but you know it, and you're deliberately doing this, and to say that, you'd have to be able to prove that they know it, which is very, very difficult to say. I can prove that you're not really psychic, let's do a reading or something, but I can't prove that you know you're not psychic and you're deliberately cheating.
Oh, right, okay.
So even when it comes to people being, as a story about someone being possessed by the spirit of a child, in that situation, you can say either they're genuinely possessed or they're faking it, because I can't think of how that would happen if you weren't faking it or weren't genuinely possessed. I don't think you could genuinely believe you're psychic, not be psychic, and still end up doing that impersonation. So it's one or the other. And so you, I think, are on the safe ground to say, I don't know what's going in your head, but either you're faking it or you're genuinely psychic.
Part of me thinks it's kind of like you just got to let them. I know you debunk them all that, but like you've got to think, well, I don't understand how you can. From listening to that, then it's like, well, you're fighting. There's nothing you can do to stop them practice. They're gonna do it. People are gonna go.
So the best you can do is just educate people as to the things that psychics can do. And actually, this is something that a guy was doing, first of all, in Manchester. He was outside of, as it happened, Sally Morgan's show with leaflets explaining.
Hammering, isn't she, old Sally Morgan?
Well, she is the biggest psychic in the UK. So she's the head of the
She's tweeting him already.
She's the very top of the industry. But this guy, a guy called Mark, was outside of Sally Morgan's show in Manchester and had leaflets just explaining some basic cold reading techniques, some basic Barnum statement type stuff, and just said, look, I'm not saying that's what Sally's doing. I'm just saying this is what some people do. And if you're aware of this stuff, then you can look out for it. And Sally Morgan's husband, who's her manager, and her son-in-law, who's her tour manager, came out and started harassing him, pushing around, threatening to beat him up, all sorts of stuff. And so in the end, he thought, well...
I'd love to see that. And I'm sensing that you're angry.
There is video footage on YouTube because he came to me. He did it in Liverpool.
Is he a big guy?
But no, not particularly. But when Mark went with some leaflets to the show in London and did the same thing, and again, he's just outside. He's being very passive about it. He's not being aggressive. He's not shouting or anything. He's just handing out a leaflet. They came out. They're pushing him around. They allege that he's gay. They say they're going to throw him under a truck. They say all sorts of really not a truck, a train. Say all sorts of really, really nasty stuff to him. But he was recording it at that point. And the abuse that they gave him was absolutely homophobic. It was some really, really nasty stuff in there as well.
It's actually possessed.
But you've got to wonder why her manager wouldn't want somebody giving out leaflets with.
So you want in an ideal world for you that it would be completely illegal to do this?
I don't think you can make it illegal. There's always going to be some people saying they've got these abilities.
So what's your mission with debunking them?
I think there are some people who are very big who are doing things that are that we can see are incredibly harmful, and if we can show the really harmful side of it, it'll make it much harder for them to carry on doing that. So most people will say when there's a psychic show in town, oh, well, maybe go along and it's a bit of fun, maybe there's not much to it. If you can say, well, actually, there are psychics out there who are saying your son didn't commit suicide, he was pushed. There are psychics out there doing impersonations or being possessed by dead toddlers. There are psychics out there just going through the local obituaries, and those are the stories that they read out on stage, and almost exactly like that.
I don't to
give people questions as to what they're seeing, and people might then start.
So
to
you
realise.
Want them to still be able to do 5-minute scams on Blackpool Pier, but
the 5-minute scams on Blackpool Pier, I think we can get shot of as well. But that was one of the few cases where we could say this person is a fraud, because you could give that reading once, and maybe that's what you thought.
Have you shut any of them down? Or have you not bothered? It's not worth it.
We actually went to Trading Standards, which is the government's watchdog, kind of the consumer protection agency, but it's been so underfunded by the successive governments over the last decade that they came back to me and said, we can't do anything about this. If you really want something done, the best bet is to go to BBC Watchdog. It's like you are the consumer protection wing of the government, and you're saying go to the telly if you want to try and get something done about this.
Unbelievable.
It's.
Do you know what as well though is if you went, do you know what? Not only is she giving psychic readings, she's offering payday loans as well. We're fucking coming down.
The best thing about that psychic, the palm reader on Blackpool was it was this little booth, and like I say, we went in with several friends over the course of the day. But sometimes the lady who gave me a reading wasn't in; it was her daughter. And she gave the same fucking reading, word for word, intonation to intonation. We played the two sounds over the top, and they're hitting exactly the same notes, the same rhythm. 7, 11, and 1 are your lucky numbers for everybody. That shows how lazy it is, because there's an infinite number of numbers, and you're picking the same lucky numbers.
7, 11, isn't that fucking London bombings?
No, 7.
All right, I was going to say
7-Eleven's the shop. Yeah.
I was going to say, Jesus Christ,
that's how I'm run by the people that did 7-7.
So I don't have I think psychics that claim to talk to dead people are I think it's horrific. I think it's the worst thing in the world, and it needs to be stopped. But I kind of look at the peer psychics, the palmistry and shit like that. I look at it in a different way. I sort of look at it as a bit of theatre, like a little bit of almost
when you go on their machines and you go, that claw cannot pick up that toy, but I'm going to have a little quid anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how I see it.
So that happened to me in Bowness last week. Like, the claw could not pick up the toy, and I was like, this is a scam.
So
went
to a psychic, and she was like, there's a big win in your future, so we're right fucking back.
Getting that Peter Rabbit in the fucking kit.
She was right. But here's the thing: is I think that it is like a bit of, like I said, a bit of theatre, and I think that the people who are doing it are doing it for an experience. They're not doing it for information. Now, you might say,
I don't know that that's true.
You might say that there are people like, for example, the gambling addicts or whatever. But my philosophy behind that would be that if you're, and I'm speaking as somebody who is a gambling addict, currently betting on every single game of the Euros right now.
I mean that you got to bet 365 and a Ladbroke and a Will Hill.
Your lucky person is Ray Winston.
29 black, is that your number?
But here's, never mind. Anyway, I was going to say, so I used to be so into gambling, I used to have a theory that I wouldn't bet on any of the numbers in the middle column on a roulette. You know, you have the board. I wouldn't bet on any numbers in the middle, because this was on the machines.
Tell you what,
because I assumed that most people would naturally go and like pick the middle. Because
nobody can ever get to 36, right?
Exactly, because what a lot of people do is they spam the board, and so they would put the money and just go like that, and most stuff would go into the middle, and most stuff would, because you start at the beginning when you're betting. So I would literally cover the top and because I thought that the gambling companies were rigging it so that the middle was betting on less, because most people would bet on the middle.
They are the devil, the fobsies. They are the fucking... I saw this one guy on YouTube, it's a signer, but he did a spin, 18 landed, and he had a bit, but then he just went everything on 18 in again. It's fucking beautiful.
Really?
Yeah, I'll have to show you.
But the thing is, though, is like the point of what I'm saying is that when you like that, you look for reasons to gamble. So I wouldn't say that woman or that psychic ruined the dude's life by saying you need to carry on or whatever, because that guy would have carried on regardless. If you'd have said, if she'd have given a reading and gone, oh, you know, today has to be your last day gambling or whatever, then he would have gone to the bookies and gambled because today would be his last day.
Yeah,
and then he'd win and go, oh, maybe she was wrong. Maybe my luck's come in. Do you know what I mean? It's
so
just
on the gambling thing, I think you're right. I still don't think that justifies her anchoring up to 100 quid that he came in saying I don't have. I think that's still pretty unethical. But one of the other stories that we sent someone in with was there's a friend of mine who's got a chronic pain condition. And she's had it all her life, but she only recently got diagnosed. And we said, go in, but go in the day before your diagnosis. You have all the pain, all the frustration, all the uncertainty about what's going on with your body, but you don't have the answer. and be that person in the psychics in the psychic reading. And what she was told was, it's going to be absolutely fine. You just need to think more positively. By the end of the year, things are going to get much better, and everything's going to start getting much better. You just have to have a positive mental attitude to it. Now, there is no amount of positive thinking was going to cure this genetic condition that she has.
Yeah.
And so if you got to the end of the year and your genetic pain condition hasn't gone away, you're just thinking, well, I was told if I was positive, it would be gone. I can't have been positive enough. I must have been too negative. It must be my fault.
Yeah.
So I think the problem with those psychics, the problem with people like that is they don't give a shit about what advice they're giving. They don't do a follow-up. It's not like you go back to them afterwards. So they're just thinking, here is money. And I don't care what I'm saying, but the people who go listen to them. Well, there was always a queue of
medicine
people.
and they pray for their kids to get better, and then they die.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because I am friends with somebody who had an operation literally a few days ago. It was an operation that gave her a 20% chance of survival, right, and an 80% chance of being dead. A big operation that was needed to happen. And this person got a psychic reading before that operation. And the psychic said, obviously going in for this big operation and shit or whatever. And then they said, but you're going to make it. You're going to pull through. You're going to be absolutely fine. Now, the reason that the psychic said that is because dead people don't ask for refunds. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's going to, because what's going to happen is either you live through it, in which case the psychic told me I was going to live through it, was absolutely right, or you die, in which case...
You're not coming back anyway.
Oh, well, I'm not getting any repeat custom either way. So, in that sense, it's a really easy fucking choice for the psychic to make.
Yeah. In that case, when you've got you're going to have an operation, what's going to happen? But when it comes to something where some people turn to psychics in moments of vulnerability, and it could be when you're grieving, it could be when you're in a position in life where you've exhausted all of the possible sources of answers and still haven't got any answers. And a lot of medical conditions are like that. A lot of chronic conditions people don't have a good answer to. It takes a long time to figure out what's going on, and people can be in a really dark place. And psychics come along, whether they believe what they're doing or not, they come along and they offer false answers to people who are in that hole with no sense of what repercussions those answers have.
But if the hope that they give them is real, then does it matter ultimately?
Yeah, so I think it does matter. I think it does
It's like a placebo effect, isn't it? If the placebo works, does it matter that it was a placebo?
That's just a therapist then, isn't it?
It would be.
That's what you go to therapy for, somebody to do, it'll be all right for you.
But it's an entirely untrained therapist who doesn't do a follow-up and doesn't care what happens to you because they've got your money and it doesn't really matter. So
and it's probably more expensive than a therapist.
Some of them certainly would be, yeah.
Can't get them on the NHS, can you?
And I think it matters when it comes to. I think it matters when it comes to the advice they're giving you.
We can't get you the operation you need, but Marsh is in the other room and he can give you a reading.
Oh, have you still got that psychic? Yeah. Nah, she went private. Sold out.
On Blackpool Pier now doing palm readings.
Big fucking queue of Bupa patients. Right, before we go, have you got anything that you want to plug, Simon?
No, just follow me on Instagram, please. That's all it is. It's not. That's all I need is just people to follow me on Instagram. I recently put a weightlifting video up, which lost me 3 followers. So fuck them, whoever they are, and their dreams. But just follow me on Instagram, Simon Wozniak Comedy.
Marsh, what is it that you want to plug? I imagine you've got loads.
So I'm the editor of the Skeptic magazine. So if you go to skeptic.org.uk, you can see we put up articles pretty much every day there about this sort of skepticism, sort of viewing critical thinking through a compassionate lens. So like, how does it actually affect people? What does it do to people? You can check out the charity that I work for, Good Thinking Society. And if you like that, you can throw a couple of quid in the bucket and keep the charity going. So, those really.
Brilliant. Good stuff. And in terms of what I'm going to plug, if you've enjoyed this, please click subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. We're also on YouTube, so you can watch the whole thing if you want. You can subscribe on there. And also, we are on Patreon, patreon.com/Pigoted. There's loads of great stuff on there. We're just about to have a break, and then we're going to record Pigoted Extra, which is more chat. That's just for the Patreon-only subscribers. We also have early release. We have merchandise. We have like a community that get involved and ask questions and can ask questions to guests and stuff like that. that. And it starts from just £3 a month. So if you are enjoying this, you want to support the podcast and you want to get extra stuff, then patreon.com/pigoted, and please give us a subscribe on there. Other than that, we will see you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. This episode of Pigoted is sponsored by Taylor's Toys. Taylor's Toys are a sex toy company. They specialise in doing high-quality sex toys that won't fall apart after 1 or 2 uses. Head over to taylorstoys.co.uk, check out the amazing range that they've got on offer, and if you use the discount code PIGOTED at checkout, you get yourself 10% off on all products. Taylor's Toys. Spice things up in the bedroom. Thank me later.